Now this yea thing, he's now talking to Mary. A sword shall pierce through thy own flesh, thy own soul also. It's a little allegory. Mary will suffer horribly. It could also be an allegory that Jesus will suffer horribly. He will die on that cross. He will descend into hell and grab the keys of death and hell from the devil. The devil is without power. He may not do anything to you unless you so will let him do it. And that thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. Jesus will reveal the hearts and minds of every single person that lived, is living, or ever will live on this planet. He's the lover of your soul. He knows your heart. Everything will be revealed, especially at the judgment seat. And that was Simeon, but Simeon had left. And verse 36, and there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phinehas of the tribe of Asher. She was of great age and had lived with a husband 7 years from her virginity. So they're identifying Anna. She's a prophetess. She's a prophet. Now there's prophets, folks. They are. There's prophets that use this book to testify to what's coming. There are Old Testament prophets that they're the ones that said, "Thus saith the Lord," and wrote their books that became part of the Bible. So men and women can be prophets. Are they prophets now? No, there's not. The Bible is closed. The books are set. If there was a prophet that said, "Thus saith the Lord," and it's something new, it'd been in the Bible already. So no. And then she was of great age. She was the daughter of Phinehas of the tribe of Asher, one of the tribes of Israel. She was of great age, so she's pretty old. And she'd had a husband for 7 years from her virginity. Now remember, most women were married around 14. She had a husband for 7 years, so she's 21 when her husband died. And she was a widow of about 68 years, 84 years. Now, if the numbers work out roughly like that, she was over 100 years old. That was very, very unusual back then. And which departed not from the temple, but served God with fasting and prayers day and night. It seems she lived in the temple, but she was on the temple grounds all the time. She was fasting and praying all the time. And she'd been doing that, it implies she'd been doing that for 84 years, waiting for the Messiah to appear. And she, this is verse 38, and she coming in that instant, so she came in right then, at that instant, probably when Simeon is finished with his prophesizing. And she was coming in that instant, gave thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all them that looked for redemption of Israel. Every Jew looked for the redemption of Israel. They wanted the Messiah to come. They wanted him to cleanse Israel. They wanted the Romans whipped and driven out. So she was talking to everybody. Give thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to everybody. She's preaching to Jesus. She's preaching about Jesus. She's evangelizing. She's a missionary. In verse 39, and when they had performed all things according to the law of the Lord, they returned unto Nazareth to their own city. And the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. After that happened, they went back home. They did everything they were supposed to do according to the law of the Lord. They returned to Nazareth. Joseph went back to work. Mary started raising her son, God. And the child grew, waxed strong in spirit, became stronger in the spirit of the Lord, was filled with wisdom now. and the grace of God was upon him. Jesus is indwelt with the grace of God. Jesus is God. He's growing up, and the Holy Spirit will come to him when he's baptized, and everything Jesus does, pray first. Talk to the Lord about it. Find out what he would have you do. Then go do that thing. Now, Jesus' parents, verse 41, they went to Israel every year for the feast of the Passover. This was a required attendance for every Jew. If you couldn't get there, there better be a serious reason why you can't get there. As millions can't. And they went every year. So they were poor, but they made the journey. And when Jesus was 12, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. So they're back up there again. It's Passover. Jesus is now 12. That's about the time a Jewish boy becomes a man. He's preparing for his bar mitzvah so he can become a man. Now, in verse 43, when they had fulfilled the days, Passover, then the next day is probably the Sabbath or another holy day. So they fulfilled all them. They did everything they were supposed to do according to the law of Moses. And then from there, they returned. They were going home. And the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem. They left, Jesus didn't. Jesus stayed in the temple. Now in these caravans, there are families and clans and cousins and uncles and all related. So Joseph and Mary, they're not really concerned Jesus isn't right beside them because he's in the group. The family's watching them. In verse 44, but they supposed him to have been in the company, and they went a day's journey, about 20 miles. And they sought him among their kinfolk and acquaintances. They walked the whole day. They're now looking for Jesus because it's supper time. You got to get ready to set camp so you can sleep for the night. And when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem seeking him. They turned right around and went back to Jerusalem. Now in this case, it says in the Bible, when they found him not, they returned. Now since they're talking about Mary and Joseph, it's Mary and Joseph returning. The rest of the caravan probably kept going. So now they're walking by themselves. And when they found him, after the day's journey, and he's not there, and they turned back to Jerusalem seeking him, they might be walking at night, folks, which was extremely dangerous back then. And it came to pass, this is verse 46, and it came to pass that after 3 days they found him. They went back to Jerusalem, 1 day walk, right? And then 3 days looking for him in the city of Jerusalem. Where is their boy? Now, you know what was running through the mind, folks, with the way things were back then. They figured he was dead. Or he'd been sold. Things were a lot rougher back then than they are now. We think they're bad now? Not nearly as bad as they were back then. Jesus described the times he walked the earth as if the days of Noah, right before the flood. That's how bad it was. And they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. So he's sitting in the temple. He's a boy. And he's teaching the teachers. That's what doctors mean, teachers. So he knows his Father's business. He knows the Word because he wrote the Word and he is the Word. And this is verse 47, and all that heard him were astonished with his understanding and his answers. And when they saw them, they were amazed. Everybody's amazed with Jesus. He's so smart. And he knows everything. Doesn't make a mistake. He's talking to learned people that have been studying the Jewish Bible for their whole life. And he's talking as equals. And when they saw him, they were amazed. This is Mary and Joseph. They're thinking, what are you doing, Jesus? A boy should not be talking to adults like that. A boy should be submissive to the adults. And his mother, Mary said to Jesus, Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought you sorrowing. So Mary went up to Jesus in the temple and said, Jesus, you have scared us to death. We've been looking for you for 3 days.